The cabin falls silent, the sound of tearing fabric cuts sharper than any turbulence. A black flight attendant, Alana, stands frozen in the aisle, her crisp uniform ripped by none other than the billionaire's mother. Gasps ripple through first. Class, some passengers clutch their phones, others avert their eyes. No one dares to move. At the center of it all, Richard Cole, the billionaire himself, sits still. His imperious worth, billions. His influence unmatched. Yet his silence now feels heavier than the jets slicing through the clouds. Will he defend the woman humiliated before him? Or will wealth shield him from accountability? The moment hangs in, the air like a storm waiting to break. And for every passenger watching, this was no longer just a flight, was a test of humanity. Hours earlier, the flight had lifted off from New York bound for Los Angeles. Passengers were settling in, sipping champagne, trading tired smiles. Among them sat Richard Cole, a self-made billionaire known for his empire in technology. Beside him, however, was a very different presence, his elderly mother. Evelyn Cole. Elegant in appearance, sharp in tone, Evelyn carried herself as if the entire cabin existed to serve her. Alana. The flight attendant had worked in the skies for over a decade. Graceful, disciplined, and endlessly professional, she knew how to calm turbulence whether in the air or in human tempers. But the unease began early. Evelyn complained about her seat, about the brand of water, about the way Alana placed the silverware. Most passengers dismissed it as another entitled traveler. But Alana felt the familiar sting of being singled out. The tone wasn't just sharp, it was loaded. Dripping with an old prejudice that Alana had endured too many times before, and yet she smiled, steady and warm, hiding the storm she felt rising. It began with words that cut deeper than any spill or delay. Evelyn's voice carried across the cabin. "You're too slow. You even know who my son is?" Each phrase dripped with disdain, as if Alana's very presence was an insult. Passengers noticed. A businessman lowered his paper. A young mother shifted uncomfortably with her child. Some glanced at Richard, expecting him to intervene, but he remained silent. His expression unreadable. Then came the breaking point. A glass of water slipped, splashing lightly onto Evelyn's lap. A small accident, nothing more. But Evelyn's fury erupted. She shot to her feet, towering over Alana, her voice rising. "Incompetent girl," she hissed. Before Alana could respond, Evelyn's hand grabbed her uniform, yanking it forward. The fabric tore with a sharp rip, exposing her to the entire cabin. Gasps filled the air. A woman across the aisle covered her mouth in shock. A man fumbled for his phone, recording. Alana stood frozen, humiliated. Her dignity shredded as surely as her clothes in that suspended second. The weight of history pressed down the echoes of every insult. Every humiliation endured by women who looked like her. And then every eye turned to Richard. The billionaire rose slowly from his seat. The silence was suffocating, the kind where even the engine seemed to fade. Evelyn, still clutching a torn strip of fabric, sneered in victory. But Richard's face hardened. With a voice that cut through the cabin, he said, "Mother." "Down." Now gasps again. Evelyn froze, disbelief flickering across her face. Richard turned to Alana, his tone shifting to something steady, protective. "You do not deserve this. Not from anyone, especially not from someone tied to me." He took off his own designer jacket and gently placed it over Alana's shoulders. In that single act, the roles reversed. Evelyn, once untouchable, now sat diminished. The power wasn't in money anymore, was in dignity, humanity, and courage. The cabin exhaled. Passengers murmured approval, some even applauding. Alana, still trembling, managed a small nod of gratitude. For the first Timon thought flight, she felt Sanote, just as an attendant. But as a human being whose dignity mattered, Richard leaned closer to his mother. His words stern but controlled. If wealth blinds us to respect, then it means nothing. Evelyn sat silently, her authority stripped away in front of dozens of witnesses. By the time the plane touched down, whispers had already turned into headlines. Billionaire defends black flight attendant. Mother disgraced mid-air. But beyond the spectacle, one truth lingered. Silence in the face of injustice is complicity. And in that cabin, Richard chose to break it. A billionaire's mother ripped the uniform of a black flight attendant, humiliating her mid-air. For a few seconds, the world stood still. Would he protect his own blood? Would defend the dignity of the PWT? Of the woman torn down in front of strangers? Its reaction stunned every passenger, shaking the cabin in a way turbulence never could. Would you have stayed silent or spoken up? Comment your city if you're watching this, because injustice like this doesn't stop at the clouds.